Now that we have added component for the timeline indicator, we're going to make this component move down every second as we are progressing throughout the day. So first of all, let's recall how our timeline indicator component is implemented. Let's switch over to the editor inside the timeline indicator component. And right here in the template, we're calling the function calculate top offset in order to determine how much pixels we should shift our indicator down. And this calculate top offset function depends on several values. One of these values is the percentage of the amount of seconds passed since midnight. And this amount of percentage in turn depends on another value, on the actual amount of seconds passed since midnight that we calculate by calling function calculate seconds since midnight. And so in order to make our indicator position be dependent on the current value of seconds passed since midnight, we're gonna have to set up the timer, which should be executed every second. So let's do it right now. Let's declare a reactive variable called seconds since midnight that is going to store amount of seconds passed since midnight up until this moment. As an initial value, we're gonna use result of the function calculate seconds since midnight, like so. That means that on the initial page load, we're calculating amount of seconds up until this point and assigning to this reactive variable. And of course, we're gonna have to dynamically calculate percentage of amount of seconds passed since midnight that will depend on the value of this reactive variable that we are referencing right here in this calculation of percentage. And in order to make Vue recalculate this percentage amount, we have to turn this expression into a computed function. So let's create new computed property called seconds since midnight in percentage. And inside the closure of this property, we're gonna place this percentage calculation that depends on the value of seconds since midnight reactive variable. So that means whenever seconds since midnight variable will change, this whole closure will be recalculated. And the computed property seconds since midnight in percentage will receive updated value. And of course, based on this percentage value, our indicator should be dynamically shifted down as we are progressing throughout our day. In other words, we have to make the value of the offset be dependent on seconds since midnight in percentage computed property. That is why we are referencing this property in here. And then let's also turn this top offset value into computed property. So it is going to be recalculated anytime percentage value will be updated. And now we just have to import computed function from the Vue package. Let's do it up at the top. And then let's scroll down and reference this computed property in our template. And by the way, whenever we are referencing computed property from the template, we don't need to explicitly refer to the value property, since Vue will do it for us. And this way we made it so computed property top offset will depend on the other computed property with the name seconds since midnight in percentage. And this computed property in turn, as we can see, depends on a reactive variable called seconds since midnight. And if we're going to change this reactive variable every second, all this computed property will be automatically recalculated. And that's what we're gonna do right now. So let's set up a timer, which is going to be called every second. We can do this by running setInterval function, and in the closure of this function, all we have to do is actually increment the value of seconds since midnight reactive variable, like so. As a second parameter in here, we have to specify an interval, how often that closure that is passed to setInterval function should be executed. We don't actually need to hardcode any value in here. Instead, we're gonna use a constant, and the constant that we need in this case is called milliseconds in second. So that way, we're making the closure of the set interval be executed every second. Let's just import this constant from the constants module, like this. So now, thanks to this registered timer, value of the reactive variable seconds since midnight will be updated every second. which will lead to update of seconds since midnight in percentage computed property, and this update will lead to the update of another computed property, top of set. But just to make the result more obvious, that we could see how our indicator shifts down slowly, we're going to increment the value of the reactive variable seconds since midnight, not by 1, but by 5 minutes. So we can use the following calculation in here. Amount of minutes, which is 5, multiplied by amount of seconds in 1 minute. So in the browser we get the following result. Right away we're seeing that our indicator moves down, and we also see that all computed properties are recalculated every second. But there is actually another edge case that we have to deal with separately, and that is whenever this indicator will reach end of the page, it is supposed to be moved to the top of the page. But currently it does not happen, so let's emulate this situation. I'm going to modify the current date by assigning 23 hours to current date like this. And on the page we'll see that our indicator will appear closer to the bottom of the page, and after reaches bottom of the page, indicator actually continues going down. So we have to prevent this from happening, and what we should do instead, when indicator reaches bottom of the page, is to move this indicator back to the top of the page. And one of the ways how we can detect that our indicator has reached bottom of the page is to check value of seconds since midnight reactive variable. As a reminder, this variable stores amount of seconds passed since midnight until this moment. And in case this variable is going to store value more than amount of seconds in 1 day, that will mean that our indicator has reached the bottom of the page. So let's just watch value of the reactive variable seconds since midnight by using watch effect function from Vue. So the closure passed to the watch effect function will be reevaluated anytime one of the reactive dependencies used inside of this closure will be changed. And just because our reactive variable seconds since midnight is updated every second, this closure will also run every second. And here we can check if the value of this variable will be greater than amount of seconds in a day. We're basically going to reset the value of this reactive variable by assigning 0 to it, like so. Which will mean that we have actually crossed the point of the midnight and the new day has started. So we have to move our indicator back to the top of the page. So let's just import this function watch effect from the Vue package and switch over to the browser and check what we get. So once our indicator reaches bottom of the page, right away we can see that it was moved up and it will be moving down again. So this way we have made our indicator change its position dynamically every second. So at the end, let's go back to the editor and remove that modification of the current date. Let's continue working on our project in the next lesson.